Hi, I'm Doug Patt, and this is How to Architect. The following story is true. I was in Portugal and sick with the flu. A train strike had just ended, and I was on my way to Madrid. The train cabin had gotten really full, and I couldn't lay down anymore. So I left my things with a stranger, and he agreed to take care of them. I grabbed my sleeping bag and headed off with the conductor to the back of the train. It had to be at least 20 minutes through an endless number of cars. I ended up in a compartment with another man who reeked of alcohol. He was passed out on the seats across from me. I laid down and tried to go to sleep until a thought overwhelmed me. I remembered that the trains separate from time to time, and my things were at the front of the train. If the train happened to separate anywhere in between where my things were and I was now, I'm a dead man. So I got up and headed toward the front of the train, but after about 5 cars, I found the door locked. They lock the sleeping cars at night. So I went and looked for a conductor to open the doors up for me, but I couldn't find one. So I went back to my compartment. When I opened the door, there was a man standing there with his back to me. He looked like he had just been reaching for the passed out guy's luggage. My friend was still out cold, so he was oblivious. I turned to this guy and I said, "You gotta leave." He refused, sat down, and pretended like he was going to go to sleep. Well, I was exhausted and feeling absolutely miserable, so I decided to lay down, but I'd keep an eye on this guy. Well, after about 10 minutes, he must have thought I was asleep. This guy stands up and reaches for the drunk guy's bags. I stand up and scream at the guy to get out of the car. He lunges at me. I go flying back and smash my head on the wall. I stand up and I start screaming for help. This guy's so surprised I'm screaming for help. His eyes get wide as saucers. He turns around and runs out of the compartment. I'm wiped out, and of course, no one comes to help. So I decide to leave the compartment and go find a conductor, because I got to tell him my stuff's still at the front of the train. And I almost just got mugged. On my way through one of the cars, I heard a woman speaking English, so I went over to her and told her my whole story. She was shocked. Just then, a conductor walked by. We both stopped him. She told him the whole story. He finished listening, looked at her, and laughed. He said there wasn't anything he could do, even though he was the guy with the keys. He said if I wanted to get to the front of the train, I had to wait till the morning. So I walked away. As I'm walking back to my compartment, I walk through the bar car, and I hear another guy speaking English. He's telling the bartender that he almost just got robbed. I walk over to him and I say, "Hey man, we gotta talk." The bartender tells us both that next time the train stops at a station, we need to get off and find the guy with the yellow coat. Apparently, they're police, and they can help. So, we head back to my new friend's compartment, where his girlfriend has just puked. Ugh. She's got the flu, too. He hands me a huge knife, and he says, "Look, you take care of her and keep an eye out for the thief. I'll get off the train at the next stop." Long story short, he found the guy with the yellow coat, and he couldn't do anything for us. Apparently robberies on these trains are relatively common, and there's nothing they can really do. So I leave their compartment and go back to my own. My friend's still a little groggy, but he's starting to wake up. I introduce myself and explain that he was almost robbed, and then I was almost assaulted. Plus, I'm in the bathroom like every 20 minutes. At this point, I'm completely resolved to get my things out of the front of the train. So I explained to him that at some point when the train stops, I'm going to jump off. Essentially, I need him to keep an eye on me out the window and make sure I don't die. Even though he doesn't speak English, he's starting to get it. And he looks at me and says, "No, I'm done." I roll up my sleeping bag and I leave the compartment. I go to the end of the hall to the door and I wait for the train to stop. Now, at this point, I need to explain that my experience is that these trains stop, sometimes in the middle of nowhere, to let other trains by. If this in fact happens and you jump off the train, you're on your own. Eventually, the train stops. I open the door. I look out at nothing, and I jump. For any of you that haven't ever jumped off a train, when it's not sitting next to a platform, it's really high. I hit the ground and I roll. I get up, turn around, and look at this huge train. And I'm thinking, holy shit, I'm outside a train in the middle of nowhere. Just then, the whistle blows and the train starts moving. So I start jogging next to the train, looking for a place I can get on, when I realize I'm not that tall. Just then, a door goes by and I see the handle next to it. So I reach up and grab it with my left hand and pull myself up because the train's not moving that fast yet. I reach for the door handle, but I don't know which way to push it. And as I reach for it, my sleeping bag falls out from underneath my arm, and it's bouncing back and forth in between my chest and the door. I try to pin it with my knee, bounces off into the darkness. So I jump off the train. Now, I'm not kidding you. Jumping off a moving train sounds really stupid, but that sleeping bag was my entire life. I hit the ground, roll, run down the hill, get my bag, turn around. But now, the train's really moving. So I start back up the hill, looking for a place to get on the train. And out of the corner of my eye, I see my drunk buddy with his head out the window, looking at me. And he must be thinking, that guy's fucking crazy. Now I'm running next to the train and looking for a place to get on. I see a handle go by, reach up and grab it, but now I'm getting dragged. I pull myself up, and my sleeping bag falls out from underneath my arm again. It's bouncing back and forth in between me and the door. I pin it with my knee, reach for the door handle, push down, and fall in. Unbelievable. I'm laying there thinking, nobody is ever gonna believe this story. So I get my things together, stand up, and start walking toward the front of the train until I get to the door, and it's locked. It's a sleeping car. So I sit there and wait until finally the same conductor that had laughed at me comes walking through. He looks down at me, and I bet he's thinking, how the hell did this guy get here? Anyway, he steps over me, walks to the door, opens it, and proceeds to walk through the next 3 cars. I follow him until he gets to his station. He's done. He's not opening any more doors for me. So I sit there and wait for the train to stop again. This time, the train stops at a station. So I jump out and run to the front of the train as fast as I can. I look up, and my train car is gone. Just then, the whistle blows, and the train starts moving. I look back about 4 cars, and standing there is the same guy I had left my stuff with. He looks at me, and I'm sure he's thinking, what are you doing? The train must have added cars in the front and pushed mine back. So I turn and run back to him. He reaches out his hand and pulls me onto the train. He doesn't speak any English, so we don't talk. I walk with him back to our compartment, open the door. My stuff's there. Everyone's asleep. I sit down and think,